Hello everyone. Today we are going to study the chapter 13. This is the final chapter of this semester, and topic is data signatures. So far we have studied several cryptographic techniques to protect the data integrity and guarantee entity authentication. For example, we have studied the cryptographic hash functions and message authentication code. And finally, we'll see the data signature today. Only the data signatures can be implemented by the asymmetric cryptographic algorithms. Let's start. This is topics of the chapter 13. At first, we'll see the data signature concept and some definitions. Data signatures can be generated by some secret key of the users, and it can be verified by the corresponding public keys. And as the specific implementation technique, we'll see two signature schemes. The first is the Elgamal-based data signature scheme, and second one is Schnorr data signature scheme. After that, we'll see some standard for the data signatures in practice, which is the DSS, data signature standard. After that, we'll see the concept of the data certificate. The certificate is used to verify the public key of the specific users. And finally, we'll see the group signatures and ring signature. Let's see from the first one. Let's consider the message authentication. The typical message authentication can protect only the two communicating parties who exchanged some messages to each other from the third party. But typical message authentication cannot protect the parties against each other. For example, let's suppose there are two users called the Alice and Bob. And let's suppose the Alice and Bob shares the same secret key K. And then let's suppose Alice encrypts some messages under the key K. And then if this message is sent to the Bob by the Alice, and then Bob can assure that this message is generated only the Alice if only the Alice and Bob shares the same secret key K. And also if there is some message authentication code in the ciphertext, and then Bob can assure the integrity of the messages. However, in terms of the other users, for example, let's suppose there are another user, Charlie, and then in terms of the Charlie, it is almost impossible to distinguish whether this message is generated by the Alice or Bob, because both the users share the same secret information, right? If the Alice generates some messages, but if the Alice denies the generation, and then in terms of Charlie, it is impossible to verify whether the claim by the Alice is true or not. If the Alice performs some actions, and if she denies the action by her, and then he claims that this action is performed by the Bob, not me, and then Charlie cannot verify it, right? So this is the very difficult problem to resolve in the symmetric schemes. So in order to resolve this problem, data signatures is developed. The data signatures can provide some abilities to verify the user and the date and time of the signature generation. If there are some data signatures, and then we can uniquely verify some specific user and its actions. So the verification is one very important ability provided by the data signatures. And second, data signatures can authenticate message content. So it means data signatures can be used to check the integrity of the messages. And the third one, the data signatures can be verifiable by any parties, any third parties in the system, and then it can resolve any dispute. For example, if the Alice performed the actions and then if at some later time, if she denies the actions, and then in this case, such kind of the repudiation can be resolved by using the data signatures because the data signatures can uniquely verify some specific actions by specific users. This is because some asymmetric cryptographic algorithm is used. Especially, every action is signed by some secret information of some users. So as long as the secret information is only kept by specific user, we can uniquely verify the actions. So data signatures is very useful to provide such a number of the useful abilities in practice. So the data signatures can including the authentication function with additional capability compared to the previous some symmetric-based schemes. So this is the concept of the data signatures. This figure shows the data signature model. Let's suppose there are two users, Bob and Alice. And Bob has some message M to sign. And then in order to generate the data signatures, Bob make use of the private key of his own. And then by using the message M and the key on the basis of the data signature generation algorithm, Bob generate some signature S here. And then S will be the Bob's signature for the message M. And then message M is concatenated by the signature S, and then they are sent together to the Alice. And then in order to verify the signature of the Bob, Alice takes some public key of the Bob here. And then by using the data signature verification algorithm, she check the signature of the message M, and then on the basis of the result, it returns whether it is valid or not. So this is a very typical scenario for the data signature generation and verification. Even if in this case the Alice is the verifier, but not only the Alice, but also any users in the system can verify the signature of the Bob because the Bob's public key is known everybody in the system. So this is public verification. Public verification is possible in the data signature generation and verification procedures. This figure shows some element of the data signatures, generation and verification. The Bob is a signer, and the Alice is verifier. And then in order to sign the message, the Bob has message M, and on the basis of the cryptographic hash function, message M is condensed to the H here, and then the H is encrypted by the Bob's private key. Then the encrypt function is used to sign the message. Then S is generated as the signature for the message M. In terms of the verifier, the message M is also condensed using the cryptographic hash function. And then if the verifier receives the Bob's signature S, and then on the basis of the Bob's public key, the S is decrypted. Actually, the decrypt function here is used to verify the signature. And then let's suppose the output is H prime. And then the H and the H prime are compared with each other. And then if they are matched, it means that the signature is valid. If not, it means it is not valid. So this is the data signature element. First, cryptographic hash function. Second, encrypt functions. Actually, this is a signature function, generation function. And third one is decrypt function for the verification of the sign. So these are three elements of the data signatures. Let's consider the attack and forgeries in the data signatures. In terms of the threat model in the data signatures, we can consider the 5 different attack scenarios on the basis of the amount of the information given to the adversary. The first one is the key-only attack. In this case, the adversary only knows the public key of user A. The user A is the target user whose signature is being attacked by the adversary. Second one is the known message attack. The adversary can access to a set of messages and signatures, its corresponding signatures. So, not only the public key, but also a set of messages and signatures are given to the adversary. But in this case, the adversary cannot choose his own messages and signatures, but a set of messages and signatures are only given to the adversary. So this is known message attack. The third one is a generic chosen message attack. In this case, the attacker can choose a list of the messages before the attack independent of the public key of the user A. And then the adversary obtains the valid signatures from the A for the chosen messages. The next one is the directed chosen message attack. So compared to the generic chosen message attack, the different point is that the adversary can know the public key of the user A first. After that, on the basis of that information, the adversary can choose a list of the messages later. After that, the adversary can obtain the valid signatures for the chosen messages. So, the directed chosen message attacker is more powerful than the generic chosen message attacker. And the final one is the adaptive chosen message attack. In this case, the adversary can make use of the user A as the oracle. The oracle means some specific entity that gives the correct answers all the time. If the adversary gives some query to the user A, and then on the basis of the query, the user A always gives the correct response to the adversary. So this is called the oracle. And then, in this case, the adversary can generate some specific, choose some specific messages, and it can get corresponding signatures from the user A depending on the previously obtained message signature pairs. So for example, there's the adversary and the victim here. The adversary may request some messages, and then he can get some its corresponding signatures, M1, S1, M2, S2, and so on. And then the later messages and signatures can be selected on the basis of the previously exchanged information. So on the basis of this knowledge, this is selected. And on the basis of this knowledge, the later information is selected by the adversary. So this is called the adaptive chosen message attack. So among the 5 different attack scenarios, the adaptive chosen message attack is the most powerful attack scenario. Now let's see the break success level against the data signature. The first is the total break. In this case, the adversary can determine the A's private key. Then we can say this is total break. So this is very powerful break success level. And then universal forgery. in this case, the adversary can find the efficient signing algorithm, efficient and alternative signing algorithm that provides the equivalent way of the construction of signature on the arbitrary messages. Let's suppose there is the original sign algorithm here. And if the adversary can find any other alternative and efficient sign prime algorithm, and then we can say this is a universal forgery. Of course, in this case, the adversary cannot find the private key of the user. But without the key, if the alternative signing algorithm can be found by the adversary, then we can say this is universal forgery. Next one is a selective forgery. In this case, we assume the adversary can forge a signature for just a chosen message. This is like the weak collision hash in the cryptographic hash function. And the final one is existential forgery. In this case, the adversary can forge a signature for at least one message. But there is no control over the message by the adversary. But if the adversary can forge a signature for any kind of the at least one message, and then this is called existential forgery. So this is the most least restricted break success level. Of course, if the adversary can determine the specific user's private key, and then it means everything is broken. Not even the digital signature, but also for the any kind of the encryption algorithm could be broken. Of course, this is very powerful break success level, but this is not so practical. So in practice, typically for the digital signature security, we just consider the existential forgery attack. So, if we develop some specific data signature algorithm, we need to prove that the given data signature algorithm is secure against existential forgery attack, rather than the total break attacker. We should consider the existential forgery attacker. So in order to increase the power of the adversary, we can consider adaptive chosen message attacker against existential forgery attack. So this is the attack and forgery issues in the data signatures. The next is the data signature requirement. It must depend on the message to be signed. And second one, it must use some information unique to the sender. So as long as this information is unique, we can prevent both the forgery and denial. So typically, some secret key in the asymmetric crypto algorithm is used to generate the data signatures. Because this secret key is unique to some specific sender, it can be used to detect any kind of the forgery and any kind of the denial. So this is a very important requirement in the data signature. Because of this feature, some symmetric crypto algorithm cannot be used to generate the data signatures. And the third one, it must be relatively easy to produce the signature. This is about the sign algorithm. And the next one, it must be relatively easy to recognize and verify. So this is about the verification of the signatures. So in terms of the signature generation and the verification, it should be efficient. This is the requirement. And the next one, it must be computationally infeasible to forge with new message for existing data signature or with fraudulent data signature for given messages. So when the data signature is given or when the message is given, its corresponding message or corresponding data signature should not be forged easily. So this is the security requirement. And in this case, of course, we can consider some adaptive chosen message attackers for some existential forgery attack. Typically, we consider existential forgery attack. And the final one, it must be practical to save data signature in storage. So this is about the storage issues. So in terms of the size, or in terms of the computation, it should be very efficient. So this is about the efficiency problem. And also it should be very difficult to forge some data signatures. And this is the security requirement. So there are several requirements for the practical usage of the data signatures. From now on, we'll study some specific example of the data signature algorithm. And then in this case, we assume just a direct data signature scenario. In the direct data signature scenario, we have several assumptions. The first is only the sender and the receiver is involved. And the second one, we assume that every receiver has a sender's public key. In this case, the receiver is the verifier, and the sender is the signer. And the third one, the data signature made by sender signing entire message or hash with a private key. So the signature is generated based on some specific the whole messages or hashed messages with the private key of the sender. And the next one is, if it is required, we can encrypt using receiver's public key for the confidentiality. But this is not the main purpose of the data signatures. But if we want, and then the confidentiality can be guaranteed using additional encryption algorithm using the receiver's public key. In order to do that, this may be one option. Sign the message first, and then encrypt the message and signature together at the same time. So this is called sign-crypt. Sign-crypt means data signature plus encrypt. This is called the sign-crypt. So if we require some confidentiality, and then we can adapt some sign-crypt approaches here. And in the direct data signature scenario, we assumed the security depends on the sender's private key. So this is the system environment for the direct data signatures. Then on the basis of this environment, now we will study several algorithms for the data signature. As the first example of the data signature, and let's see the AlGamal-based data signature algorithm. This is the signature variant of the AlGamal encryption. Like the AlGamal encryption, the AlGamal data signature algorithm uses the exponentiation in the finite field. And its security is based on the difficulty of computing discrete logarithm problem, as in the Diffie-Hellman-Hjorth protocol. In the AlGamal data signature algorithm, we are using the private key for the encryption. Also, we are using the public key for decryption. The encryption under the private key means the signing, and decryption under the public key means the verification. And then let's see how the algorithm is working. This is key setup procedure. Each user, let's say this is the A. Each user generates their key information like this. At first, they choose a secret key XA between 1 and Q-1. After that, the user compute the public key like this: A, Q, and YA. YA is equal to the A to the XA mod Q. A is a primitive root of a prime number, Q. The key setup procedure is almost the same as the previous Algorithmic encryption algorithm. So if we are familiar with the Algorithmic encryption, and then the Algorithmic data signature is not so difficult to understand. The key setup is almost the same. And then let's see how the signature is generated and verified in the next slide. This is the signature generation procedure. Let's suppose user A signs some message M, and then the following procedure is required. The first step is to generate the hashed value of the M. So this is condensed procedure using the cryptographic hash function H. And then let's say this is the hashed value for the message M to be signed. And then this will be generated between 0 and Q-1. And then the user A chooses a random integer K with this assumption that is a K should be between 1 and Q-1, and then K and Q-1 should be relatively prime. And then it compute the temporal key as S1, which is equal to A to the K mod Q. After that, the user A generate the inverse of the K mod Q-1. Then it compute another S2 as K inverse times M minus XA S1 mod Q-1. And then the signature is a pair of S1 and S2. So this S1 and S2 will be a pair of the signature. So this is a signature generation by the Elgamal data signature algorithm. And the signature verification procedure progresses as follows. And then first is to generate the V1, which is the A to the M mod Q. A to the M mod Q. And then V2 will be YA to S1 and times S1 to the S2 mod Q. And then if the computed V1 and V2 are the same, and then signature is valid. If this is not equal to each other, and then signature is invalid. So this is a signature verification procedure. And then let's demonstrate why the verification is working in the next slide. In order to prove the correctness of the Elgamal data signature algorithm, we need to demonstrate why the V2 would be equal to the V1 in the verification procedure in the data signature algorithm. Now let's see the specific procedures to demonstrate it. So this is a procedure to compute the V2 and compare it with the V1 finally. And the V2 is the YA to the S1 times S1 to the S2 mod Q. Then the YA is A to the XA, and then S1 is A to the K. So this is A to the XA times S1 times A to the K times S2 mod Q. Then we know the S2 is K inverse times M minus XA times S1. All of the exponent are computed given the mod pi of Q. And then this K and this K inverse would be removed here. And then we will get the result, A to the XA times S1 times A to the M minus XA S1. And then we can see the XA S1 can be removed here. And then the result will be A to the M mod Q, and then this will be the V1. So this is a procedure to demonstrate whether the Elgamal verification procedure is working correctly or not. So as you can see, if there is no some exceptional case during the procedures, V2 will be the same as V1. So this is demonstration procedure. Please do it by yourself. Let's see one example of the Agama signature algorithm. In this case, we suppose the computation is performed in the GF of 19. So the prime number Q is 19, and let's suppose we select the primitive root as 10. Actually, the prime number Q has more primitive root. For example, 2, 3, 10, 13, 14, 15 are the primitive root for the number 19. But in this case, we suppose 10 is selected as a primitive root. Then Alice, which is the signer, the Alice compute her secret key and corresponding public key like this. She selects 16 as the private key XA and compute the public key YA as 10 to the 16 mode 19, and then it will be the 4. So 16 is the private key and 4 is corresponding public key. And then in order to sign the message, hash function is used to condense the message. And then let's suppose the condensed message is 14 to be signed. So in order to sign the message 14, the condensed message 14, let's suppose the Alice choose a random number as 5. So K is 5, and such that GCD of 18 and 15 would be 1. So 5 should be relatively prime to the 18, which is a pi of Q. Then compute the S1 as this one. So 10 to the 5 mode 19. This is S1 and it will be 3. And then we need to find the multiplicative inverse of the K, mode pi of Q. So K inverse mode Q minus 1 would be 11. So in order to find it, we need to use the extended Euclidean algorithm. So please do it by yourself. And this is just some result of the computation. And then the Alice can compute the S2, which is the 11 times 14 minus 16 times 3 mode 18. So this will be 4. Then the signature is a pair of the S1 and S2. So 3 and 4 would be the signature for the message M. And then any user B can verify the signature by computing the following ones. So V1 will be 10 to the 14, 10 to the 14, which will be 16, mode 19. And then V2 will be 4 to the 3 times 3 to the 4, which will be 51, 84. And then this will be 16, mode 19. So we can see that V1 is equal to the V2. So this is the verification procedure. And then anybody in the system can verify the signature of the Alice by just simply using the public parameter and the signature. So we can check that this is valid. So it may take some time to compute the signature generation and verification. So please do it by yourself, okay? Next, let's see the second example of the digital signature algorithm. This is Schnorr digital signature. The Schnorr digital signature algorithm also makes use of the exponentiation in the finite field. And its security is based on the discrete logarithm problem, as in the Diffie-Hellman-Key-Agreement algorithm. One of the advantages of the Schnorr digital signature is that the message-dependent computation can be minimized. It means that the main work does not depend on the message itself, so the main work can be done in the ideal time. because some part is not dependent on the message itself, we can pre-calculate some specific work before the signature generation. So if the message is given, the later part of the computation is only required. So especially the message dependent part only requires some simple multiplication, especially multiplying 2n-bit integer with n-bit integer. So this is the only some message dependent part. So before generation of this signature, we can pre-calculate any other part. So this is one of the advantages of the Shinoru Dito signatures. And the Shinoru Dito signature is based on some using a prime modulus p. In this case, we need some specific requirement, that is, the p-1 has a prime factor q of some appropriate size. Typically, p is 1024 bit and q would be 160 bit numbers. So this is determined on the basis of the security requirement. If we require more high level of the security, then the size of the bit is determined on the basis of the level. Let's see detailed algorithm of the Shinoru Dito signature. The first is key setup. In this case, we need to choose some public parameters. So P and Q are selected. They are all some prime numbers, but Q should be a prime factor of P-1. So this is one condition. And then we need to choose the A such that A to the Q is equal to the 1 mod P. And then such the A, P, Q are all the global public parameters. And this information is shared by every entity in the system. And then each user generate the key information like this. First, each user choose a secret key S between 0 and Q and compute a public key as the A to the minus S mod P. So this is denoted by the V. And then in order to sign the message, some user, the signer, choose some random number R between 0 and Q and compute the X as the A to the R mod P. Then concatenate the message M with the X, then hash the result. Then let's denote the result as the E. Then compute the Y. Y is the R plus SE mod Q. Then such an E and Y would be the signature pair. H of M concatenated by the X and R plus SE mod Q are the pair of the signatures. And let's see the verification procedure. In order to verify the signature, anybody in the system can verify the signature like this. First, we can calculate the X prime as the A to the Y times V to the E mod P. And then verify whether the E is equal to the H of M concatenated by X prime. So this is verification procedure. If this is the same, then the signature is verified correctly. Else, the signature is invalid. Let's demonstrate why the verification is working correctly in the next slide. And this is demonstration procedure. So in terms of the verifier, the first step is to compute the A to the Y times V to the E mod P. And then V is equal to the A to the minus S. So it can be computed like this, A to the Y minus SE mod P. And then we know the Y is equal to the R plus SE. So the result will be a to the r mod p, and then this will be equal to the x mod p. So now we demonstrate h of m and x prime will be equal to the h of m and x. So this is a demonstration procedure of the Shinoda data signature. Now let's see the standard of data signature. So this is called data signature standard, or DSS. The DSS was designed by the NIST and NSA in the early 1990s. And then it was published as a standard in the 1991. This is a standard number. After that, it was revised 3 times. That is in the 1993, 1996, and 2000. It used the SHA as the cryptographic hash algorithm, and then it presents some algorithm for the data signature. This is called the DSA. The DSS is the name of the standard, and then TSA is the name of the data signature algorithm. DSA is used in the DSS. And some standard published in the 2000, the DSA algorithm was included in the standard, and then the DSA was developed based on the RSA and elliptic curve cryptography. But unlike the RSA, DSA cannot be used for the encryption or key exchange. So the RSA is much more universal public key algorithm, which can be used for the key distribution or data encryptions or data signatures, but DSA is only can be used for the data signature. And then let's see the algorithm of the DSA. This figure shows the DSS and the RSA signature. Let's see the RSA case first. Given the message M to be signed, on the basis of the hashed value of the message M, we encrypt it using the private key of the sender, and then this will be the signature. Then the message M and signature is concatenated together. Then on the receiver side, the receiver can verify the signature by decrypting it using the public key of the sender, and then perform the comparison between the received one and the calculated one. And then if they are matched, then the signature will be valid. Let's see the second case, DSS. The message M is given, which is to be signed, and then the H of M is signed by some specific algorithm. So this is the SA algorithm. It can be only used for the data signature, not for the typical encryption or key exchange, but it is only used for the data signature. And then on the basis of the message M, hashed message M, and public information and private key of the sender and some secret key information K, it generates the signature, and the signature will be a pair of SNR. The message M, the SNR, will be a signature pair. Then the message M and signature pair SNR sent to the receiver, and then there is some verification algorithm. This is also provided by the DSA algorithm. On the basis of the verification algorithm, the receiver may generate some output on the basis of the public information, and this is a global public parameter, and this is the public key of the sender. PUA is a public key of the sender, and PUG is a global public parameters. And then on the basis of the S and R and condensed message M and global parameter, global public parameter, and the public key of the sender, he can compare the computed one and the received one. If the comparison result is correct, and then we can verify the signature. So this is a DSS approach. And let's see the inside of the DSA algorithm in the next slide. The DSA algorithm can create the 320-bit signature, and it can guarantee the security with 512 to 1024-bit security. Compared to the RSA, it is much smaller and faster. So because the RSA is implemented for the data encryption rather than the digital signatures, of course, RSA can be used for the digital signature, but the main purpose of the RSA is the data encryption. So this is more universal. So compared to the RSA, DSA is much smaller and faster with the same security the level. And the DSA algorithm is only used for the digital signature, and its security depends on the difficulty of computing disk logarithm problem. And this is a variant of algorithm schemes and Schnorr digital signature scheme. And let's see the inside of the DSA. This is a key setup procedure in the DSA. The first step is to determine the global public key. This is set of the PQG. At first, we need to choose 160-bit prime number Q at random. So prime number Q is generated, selected, and then we choose a large prime P between 2 to the L minus 1 and 2 to the L, where the L is the 512 to the 1024 bit and multiple of the 64. And then Q is the 160-bit prime divisor of P minus 1. So Q should be the prime divisor of the P minus 1. And then we compute the G as the H to the P minus 1 over Q. And the condition is H is between 1 and P minus 1, and the value, the H to the P minus 1 over Q mod P should be greater than 1. So this is the global public key setup procedure. And then each user set up their own private key and public key. At first, let's suppose each user choose a random private key X, which is less than Q, and then compute the public key as a G to the X, which is dy mod P, and X and Y will be the private key and the public key of each user, respectively. In order to sign a message M, the sender or signer need to generate a random signature key K first. It should be less than the Q and it should be random. This is one condition. It means that it should not be reused. If the same key K is reused for different message signature generation, and then if there is some existential forgery attacker, then such a signature can be forged easily. So, in order to prevent such an attack against the signature generation and verification, the same secret key, the random signature key K, should not be reused. So this is one condition. And then this is a procedure to the signature generation, R and S. The R is the G to the K mod P mod Q, and S is the K inverse times H of M plus XR mod Q. Then the signature pair R and S will be sent to the receiver with the message M. And then this is the signature generation procedure. And then let's suppose these two parts. Especially, given the message M, the signature is generated, but some part can be pre-calculated. If there is some part which is independent of the message itself, we can pre-calculate the part before the signature generation, and then we can save the time for the signature generation, right? And then which part is the message dependent and which part is not message dependent. This is message dependent part, right? G to the K and K inverse are the message independent part. So G to the K, computation of the G to the K and finding the K inverse, actually it may require a lot of time compared to the other operations in the signature generation. So this is computationally demanding operations. But fortunately, these operations are independent of the message itself. It means that we can pre-calculate this part before the signature generation, and then we can save the signature generation time. And then this is the idea adopted from the Schnorr data signature. In order to verify the signature, the receiver or verifier compute the following component one by one. First, W is computed, which is the S inverse mod Q. Then U1 is computed as H of M times W mod Q. W is the S inverse, and U2 is calculated as R times W mod Q. Then the V is calculated as G to the U1 times Y to the U2 mod P and mod Q. In this case, if the V is equal to R, then the signature is valid. So let's demonstrate why the verification procedure is working correctly in the next slide. This is demonstration procedure of the DSA signature verification. So we know that the S is equal to the K inverse times H of M plus XR mod Q. So the K and H of M times S inverse plus XR S inverse are congruent mod Q. So this is the same as H of M times W plus XRW. So because the G has the order Q mod P, given the mod P, we have the followings: G to the K and G to the H of M W times G to the X R W are congruent mod P. And in this case, G to the X is the Y, and then this is the U1 and this is U2. So it means that G to the K and G to the U1 times Y to the U2 are congruent mod P. So this is the R is V. So this is the end of the demonstration. So we can check, we can verify the correctness of the detailed signature algorithm verification procedure. This figure shows the DSS overview. So DSS, the standard, make use of the previous DSA algorithm. So given the message M to sign and some random secret information K, the pair of the S and R generated as the data signature. In this case, the F1 function and F2 functions are defined like this. So the S function, S is generated by the F1 function, which is the K inverse times H of M plus XR mod Q. And the R is generated by the F2 function, which is G to the K mod P and mod Q. So this is a pair of the signature. On the receiver side, let's suppose M prime, S prime, and R prime are given to the receiver. And then based on it, and using the F3 function and F4 function, the receiver generates the value V, and received R is compared with each other, whether they are the same or not. And then the F3 function is the S prime inverse, and V function is like this: G to the H of M prime W times Y to the R prime W, given the mod P and mod Q. So this is a procedure to sign the message and verify the messages. It makes use of the DSA algorithm. So this is a DSS overview. And let's analyze some property of the DSS in the next slide. In the DSS standard and DSA algorithm, there are some parts which are not dependent on the message itself. For example, some procedure to calculate the R. We do not require any message at all. It means that the calculation is not dependent on the message itself. So it means we can pre-calculate some kind of the information before we are getting the message itself. So in terms of the computational overhead, some demanding task in the signature generation is the exponentiation procedure to calculate g to the k mod p and finding the inverse of the k. But fortunately, these parts are message independent. So it means that we can pre-calculate some number r, and we can pre-calculate and find the inverse of the k ahead of the time of the signature generation. So this is very good point and beneficial point for the DSS standard. Because of this feature, we can save the time for the signature generation compared to the RSA or the other signature generation algorithm. And this is one of the key advantage of the DSA. So far, we have studied a lot of useful application of the public key crypto system, from the encryption to the digital signature. But in this case, we have assumed just a simple and basic one important feature. That is, everybody in the system can verify the public key of some specific user, right? In order to encrypt some message or in order to verify the signature, we assume that we already know the public key of some specific user. That was the assumption. But in practice, how can we assure the public key of some specific user in a secure way? Actually, this is a very difficult problem, right? So one key question in the public key crypto system is how to send one's public key to other users in the system in a secure way. So one simple way is to simply broadcast the public key to all the people in the system. This is very convenient. However, the one limitation of the broadcast is that anybody can or anybody may forge the public information, right? If somebody forged some public key of a specific user, and then how can you assure? How can you verify some public key of some specific user in a secure fashion? This is a very difficult problem. So in order to make some countermeasure and solve the problem, the public key certificate concept has been developed. The public key certificate is composed of the public key and ID information of the key owner. And then the whole message block, the whole information is signed by some trusted third party. This is called Certificate Authority or CA, using some signature algorithm like the RSA or DSA or Gamma signature or some Shinobi signature and so on. The key point here is that it is signed by the trusted third party. So as long as the third party is trusted by some specific user or any users in the system, we can guarantee the public key of some specific user, the authenticity of the public key of some specific user, as long as the third party is trusted. In order to verify the signature, we just need to get the public key of the CA. In this case, of course, we should assume that the public key of the CA is already given. On the basis of that assumption, we can verify the public key of some specific user. So that is the idea of the public key certificate. the X.509 is a standard for the public key certificate. And this is very widely used and universally accepted public key certificate. And it is used in most network security applications, for example, IPsec, TLS, SSH, SMIME, and so on. This figure shows the public key certificate. There is some ID information. Let's suppose this is for user Bob, and this is a Bob's ID information and public key. Then there is also the CA information. And then these message blocks are used to generate the signature by the CA. And then on the basis of the hashed value of this information, and the CA sign the messages using the private key. Sign the message using the private key of the CA, and then this is a signed certificate. So this is a signature generated by the CA. And then if some user wish to get the public key of the Bob, and then the first step is to get its corresponding certificate. If the receiver get the certificate for the user Bob, the first step is to get the condensed value from the given information, and then signature verification procedure is followed. So on the basis of the signature, the receiver verify the signature using the CA's public key, and then it can get the result, and then they are compared together. If they are the same, then the receiver can verify the Bob's public key. After that, the Bob's public key is used for the message encryption or the signature verification for the Bob. So this is a procedure to get the public key of some specific user using the certificate. So on the right hand side, you can see the X.509 version 3 structure. This is a standard. There is some information for the certificate and the certificate signature algorithm information and so on. In the certificate, we can see the version number, serial number, signature algorithm ID, issuer name, the validity period for the certificate, and so on. So there are many important information in the certificate. So on the basis of the digital signature algorithm, we can get the correct public key for specific user. However, in order for this certificate mechanism is working correctly, we should get the public key of the CA first, right? And then how can we trust the CA's public key? So this is the same question. So this is one of the key points to for the public key certificate mechanism to work correctly. So this should be assumed. We should assume that at least CA's public key is known. On the basis of this assumption, we can verify the specific user's public key. But if some users cannot trust the CA, then the public certificate system is not working correctly. So the one condition is we should fully trust the CA. On the basis of that assumption, only under that assumption, the public key certificate system is working. So this is one limitation of the public key crypto system. So far, we have studied basic concept and definition and properties of the digital signatures, and we also studied the public key certificate mechanism. From now on, I'd like to introduce more recent variant of the digital signature. That is, the first is a group signature. The group signature was initially introduced in 1991 at the Eurocrypt conference. The group signature allows any member of the group to anonymously sign a message on behalf of the group. It means that any member in the group can sign the message, but it can remain anonymous. So, verifier only know the message was signed by some members in the group. but the verifier does not know which particular user actually signed it. So this is anonymous sign, anonymous signature. But there is one condition. So the group manager is existing in the group signature, and the group signature is a special entity who is in charge of some group member management. But in this case, in the group signature, if the group manager wants, the group manager can reveal the original signer. But only the group manager can reveal the original signer, but any other users inside of the group or outside of the group cannot reveal the original signer. So this is the concept of the group signature, which is the main advantage of the group signature is to provide the anonymous sign mechanism. So this is a group signature. The key properties of the group signature is, first, unforgeability. Only the group members can correctly sign the messages. If some users is outside of the group, and then that user cannot sign the message. So this is unforgeability. And second one is anonymity and traceability. Actually, this is some opposite concept. And for the anonymity, it is impossible to find out which group member signed a message. And traceability means it is possible to find out which group member signed the message. But as I said before, only the group manager can trace the signer. Else, any other users except the group manager cannot find out the group member who signed the message. And the third property is unlinkability. It means it is impossible to decide whether the two signatures have been issued by the same group member. So this is related to the anonymity. And the final one is security against the framing attack. It means group members cannot sign a message on behalf of the another group member. So this is key properties provided by the group signatures. And then if you are interested, then you can see the paper. The second variant is a ring signature. It was published in the 2001 in the AsiaCrypt conference. So this is very similar to the group signature. It means that it can provide the anonymous sign mechanism. But it is a little different compared to the group signatures in terms of the two properties. The first is there is no way to revoke the anonymity of an individual signatures. In the group signature, the group manager can reveal the ID, original ID of some specific signer. But in the ring signatures, it is impossible. And the second one is any group of the users can be used as a group without additional setup. So in the group signature, the group members should be initially set up, and it is very difficult to revoke any members or change any membership information. But in the ring signature, the group can be dynamically managed during the protocol. So this is the more flexible compared to the group signature. Because the ring signature is very flexible and it can provide anonymous sign mechanism, it can be widely adapted to the cryptocurrency application. The one example is Monero. Monero is one of the cryptocurrency which is used in practice. In the Monero system, in the Monero cryptocurrency, it can hide the linkage between the multiple transactions. That is, the unlinkability and untraceability can be provided. In order to provide these properties, the ring signature is used. In the ring of the signers, actually all members are equal and valid. It means that if there is some trace from one wallet to another one and another one, And another one, if this is address of some specific wallet, and if this is transaction in the blockchain, actually this is transparent. All information is transparent in the blockchain. So if it is uniquely traced, then we can check who sent the money to the which wallet, from which address to what address. We can trace all of the information because blockchain is transparent. But if there is a multiple trace, which can be verified using the ring signatures, actually we cannot uniquely trace some specific and valid trace. So ring signature can be used to hide the linkability and make it very difficult to trace the transactions. So the ring signatures can ensure the transaction outputs are untraceable. So in order to hide the transactions, the Monero system can provide the unlinkability and untraceability using the ring signature. So this is one of the applications of the ring signature in practice. So if you are interested in the Monero or the ring signature applications, and please see the paper, you can find it in the many web pages. And this is the application of the ring signature to the cryptocurrency. Let's summarize today's class. Today we studied the basic concept and definition and key requirement of the security for the digital signatures. Digital signature algorithm can be only implemented by the asymmetric crypto algorithm. And as a specific example, we studied the Algama and Shinoru digital signature schemes in detail. After that, we studied the digital signature standard and its algorithm, DSS and TSA. DSS is a combination of the Algama signature and the Shinoru signatures. And then we studied the mechanism of the public key certificate. In order to verify the public key of the users, we studied the basic idea of the public key certificate. And finally, we studied some more recent applications of the signatures, like the group signature and the ring signature and its applications. So this is the topics of the chapter 13, and this is end of this semester. So if we have any questions, please send an email to me. That's it. This is the end.